Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Bona Normandeau. She is the host of the Happier You podcast and also a happiness coach. And her mission is to empower individuals to find their own happiness, help them navigate their unique journeys with their greater resilience and more joy. And after a military career, she realized she was lost, lacking focus, and living a life of fitting in and people pleasing. After being asked what her dream was, she realized she had no idea how to answer that question. She decided to embark on a journey to discover what living her best life could look like. Instead of just taking the journey herself, she decided to start her podcast and share her experiences with others in case anyone else out there needed to know they weren't alone. And she found out she most definitely wasn't alone. And I think maybe many people can relate to this story and this message here. And she's been inspiring action in other people to get out there and find happiness in their lives ever since. So, with that, welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here.
Thanks, Scott. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So in the intro, I briefly talked about how you started your journey of figuring out how to live your best life. Tell us about that, and how you realized you weren't really sure what living your dream actually looked.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I went to a conference just totally for a girls' weekend. One of my besties lived in a different city, so we picked a conference and met there. So we're at this conference, a few thousand people in the room, and the speaker says, "All right, so you're going to turn to the person next to you and share what's the dream in your heart." And the whole place just erupted. Everybody's excitedly sharing. I turn to the friend on my left and she shares hers, and I turn to the friend on my right and she shares hers. And then they both look at me and I'm just like, I just start crying. There's just I'm like a dream in my what? A who? Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even fathom the question. So I cried. It was yeah, it was a pretty humbling moment. Like I didn't one of these things was not like the others. I didn't fit in. So I took a few hours, and later that day I realized that I couldn't have a dream in my heart because I didn't really know or like myself. I didn't know who I was. And I realized I joined the military at 17, and I was really good at it because every couple of years they gave me a new goal and said, "This is how you succeed in that role. And
Mm.
so you need me to do this and act like this and say this and learn this." And I did it. And then they give me another goal and another goal. And here I was in my 40s, and I never really had to figure out what a dream in my heart was. I never really needed one because I just always kept going to the next level, pleasing people. So it was yeah, it was the start of a humbling journey, but it I call it the happier my happiness journey because I really discovered I learned to like myself and dare I say love myself and just really embrace being, the unique imperfect person that I am.
That's an interesting thing. The last thing that you just said there, that unique, imperfect, and just embracing that, knowing that, yeah, I got my flaws. I have some quirks maybe, or whatever, but that's okay. So does everybody else, and they're unique. Everyone's a little bit different. You might be able to find, quote unquote, your people, um, who maybe share some similar qualities that you do, and maybe you get along better with that type of person. But we all have these unique uh, imperfections, if you will, right? And part of that journey is just being okay with who you are, right?
I actually think it's the key to the whole thing, Scott. Honestly, I think the sooner we stop judging ourselves and accept ourselves for who we are, I just find I see beauty in other people that previously would have made me uncomfortable because they were so different from me. And now I see unique people and I honor their courage to show up in the world as themselves and, challenge the norm. So, yeah, it's freedom in a way just to be okay with who you are.
Yeah, it is sort of freedom. Not sort of, it is, because when you're okay with who you are, um, other people's opinions of who you are doesn't really matter so much anymore, does it?
No, it's, you take back that control, right? Like, if
Yeah,
you can lovingly support yourself, then, they're entitled to their opinions, but I don't have to worry about it anymore, so.
sure. So you said you joined the military at 17. That's uh, that's like the right out of high school. I'm in. At that point. What drove you to that as opposed to maybe other career choices or college or other things like that?
So I am from a town of, less than 600 people, and I craved adventure, and it's so funny because at the time I was either gonna be a pilot or a carpenter, and I ended up being neither. But, at 17, you don't really know.
Sure.
So I went to the Canadian equivalent of USNA. So I went and, they were gonna pay me to get a degree and give me a career and adventure all whipped into one. And like I said, I was from a town of 600 people. I needed to see the world and have an adventure more than anything. So
And I'm sure you did. You did get to see, different parts of the world that maybe you wouldn't have been able to see, otherwise as, maybe, as a carpenter, for
right.
example.
I wouldn't have made it as a carpenter, Scott, let's be honest here, right? Like, but you're right.
Well,
Yes, I did. I saw a lot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure, and so, looking back at that, at that journey that you went through, you got to experience some things. I'm sure there was ups and downs. There was, good days and bad days. There was, everyone has that type of experience. Um, some worse than others, some better than others. But how did that help shape where you are now and what you're doing now, or did it? Maybe it didn't at all, but I got to imagine there were some pieces of what you picked up in the military um, that uh, you carried forward in your civilian life afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I think, I mean, I always say I grew up in the military, like, my formative years, I left home, and then I was parented by the military essentially because, um, yeah, like, we didn't have cell phones in those days. So when I left home and, you recruit camp, you don't call home for the first 6 weeks. Like,
Right.
as a parent now, I look back and I think, how did my parents do that? That's crazy. Um, yeah, I think you learn resilience in the military because you're constantly thrown into different situations. But also, one of the beautiful things I learned from the military is after we do an exercise or training, we always look back and say, okay, what went well and what didn't work. And for
Right.
me, I use that in all my teaching for happiness as well is, okay, so if that didn't go as well as you thought, or you didn't get as much joy or happiness out of a certain situation, what could you do differently next time? So instead of judging it, it's that, sort of formulated after action report. What can I learn from this experience and how can I do better next time? So I think that's one of the biggest ones for me, but also I would say is the connection. Just I made some of the best friends ever, through those formative years and still, but it was such a when you go through that with people, that's just powerful, like, that
Yep.
connection is so powerful, so
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And um, one of the things I think I liked the most about the structure of the military uh, were um, the way that we were able to kind of look back and reflect and look at what went right, what went wrong, and improve. Like it was almost like a culture of like always wanting to get better at
right.
whatever it was that we were doing. whether it was a training exercise or whether it was a combat mission or whatever, we'd always look back and say, okay, give me a few things that went right, give me a few things that went wrong. What could we not necessarily went wrong, but what could we improve on? And what can we sustain? The things that went right. But those are the things you want to sustain and keep doing those things because they went right. But that that's something that kind of has fallen off. I think in my own life, thinking about it, like I don't really do after action reports. Like
Right.
after going through some experience, it could be, taking the kids to an amusement park or, whatever, you know, what what should we do more of next time? What should we maybe cut out because that didn't quite go as well as we thought it would? You know, they don't really do that too much. And uh, then you end up doing, what basically the definition of insanity is, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And it's like, well, it didn't work the first time. So why is it going to work now?
Yeah.
You know? So that's a good point. I like that. That's kind of the approach that you're taking, right?
Absolutely. I just think that we don't, like you say, we don't apply it to our personal lives. And, you mentioned a family holiday. I think that's brilliant. I think that's one of the best times to do it because when we get our kids involved in that dialogue, then they're learning that, even if it wasn't the best, we
Yeah.
can take it and learn from it and move on. Like it's not something to dwell on. It's like, okay, well, next time we'll do better and we're gonna have even more fun. So go
Right.
us, like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so one of the things that, just through my, kind of research that I do before, these episodes, I always laugh at myself as I'm doing the research. Is I'm basically looking into the guest and finding out more information about them. And I joke with my wife that I'm doing like a little light internet stalking on all of these people.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not that I'm not a stalker. I'm not going to show up at people's doors or anything like that. So don't worry about that if you're ever considering being a guest on this show. Um, but one of the things that you talk about is you teach that people need to find the things that make their soul sing. Um, that they need to find the thing that kind of like lights that fire inside of them and gets them excited and energetic and passionate and whatnot. Um, but the question that I had when I was kind of looking through um, all of this and thinking about the structure of this episode, what if someone's in a situation like you were in, a few years back when you were asked that question of what is the dream? What is that thing that will spark that fire inside of you? And you just don't know what that is. Where do people start to try to figure that out?
Yeah, well, first thing I would say is you're not alone. I think so many of us pretend that we know what we're doing and, we walk the walk and talk the talk, but we just don't feel it. We don't feel it on the inside.
Sure.
I always encourage people to just this scares some people, but get to know yourself. So start asking yourself, what do I enjoy doing, and what really lights me up or brings me hope? It's those little things in life that we often get so busy living life that we forget to acknowledge and notice things that bring us joy. For example, I always teach people, figure out what recharges you or makes your soul sing, and start adding those into your life. Consciously put them in your life. So, for example, Scott, when I run people through this, I'm like, let's brainstorm. And so I give everybody time. We all write down as many as we can come up with. And then we start sharing. And one person loves to build Lego. And another person they just feel pure peace when they're just sitting there petting their dog. Another person could be, baking, gardening, something creative, painting. For me, believe it or not, it's a good sweaty workout. Like, when I finish a workout, I feel like I can do anything afterwards, right? Like, I'm just
Sure.
like, "Okay, I have this crazy day ahead of me, but man, I just nailed that workout. I feel amazing."
Hmm.
And when you start to notice things that bring you joy, you like, they don't have to be big, right? Like, I'm not talking about, like, standing on a beach in Hawaii and being like, "Oh." It's the little things in life that we start to realize, "How that really feels good." And then to start, like, invite more of it into your life. And when I say invite, I mean schedule. Like, tell yourself, I'm doing this for myself. But when you do it, you're also acknowledging it, right? Like just realizing that I've chosen to give this to myself because it matters. I matter. And what I find is as we do that, we start to notice, oh, this doesn't bring me joy, right? And so you just start to get to know yourself better because you're starting to do things more for yourself, and it's just it builds momentum. You start to That's a good feeling, and you're like, "Huh, how can I do more of this and less of that?" kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, that's where I think people should start, is really just inviting more joy in and acknowledging it when you do it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, when you're talking about how, um, eh, it could be small things, and I think s small things are probably better than, like, the big thing, like standing on a beach in Hawaii or whatever, right? That's not sustainable. That, like, in that moment, yeah, it might be great, for, however many days that you're there, um, and that's fine, but then you're gonna come back home at some point, and then where's your where's your next beach that you're going to
Right.
be standing on, right? And
Yeah.
that you can't bring that beach home. I mean, maybe you can scoop a handful of sand or something like that with you, but it's not quite the same, right? Um,
Not quite.
yeah, right, but, um so the small things that are sustainable are better than, those big, massive things, right? So, um, but another thing that I noticed as you were mentioning all of the activities that people were doing, they all have some, even a very minor, physical component to it. Even painting, you're you're doing, like, the fine motor skills, kinda like the control of the brush and all of that. The gardening, there's physical aspect to that. Going to the gym and exercising, getting a real good sweat on, is um, gonna definitely have that physical aspect. Um, but I feel like that type of thing, the physical thing, um, almost serves as a way to keep yourself focused on what's going on in the here and now, in that present moment, as opposed to letting your mind wander off into anxiety land or depression land. Like, you kind of have to be focused, right?
That's such a great, observation, and yes, in fact, when I teach this and I talk about it, it's like you're in the moment, like, you are there acknowledging, so it's like the stress and everything else drops away, and you just
Sure.
get to enjoy that activity. One of mine, actually, so the sweaty workout, yes, but also just a great connection with a friend. So I guess it's less physical, but it is engaging, like you say, like, you're there with that person, hearing them, connecting with them, as opposed to, like you say, yeah, worrying, being drawn back into the anxiety, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
present in the moment.
Yeah. And okay, so I can wrap my head around those activities, those things that bring you some sort of joy or happiness, whatever the word is that you want to wrap around that. Um, what about outside of those activities? Obviously, you can't exercise all day long. You have a job, you have other things that you need to do, right? Um, is it like a little dose of that, like, maybe first thing in the morning, or maybe after work at night, or whenever it is that you fit that into your day, you schedule it in. Is that dose enough to carry you through till the next time that you do it, or are there ways that um you need to still focus on the being present as you're going through other activities in your life, maybe working, or taking your kids to school, or soccer practice, or wherever you might be going, but is there things like that you can work on during those types of activities as well?
Well, I mean, okay, so happiness is a journey, right? So it's not like it is not a destination. So we don't like achieve happiness and then life's good all the time. It
Sure.
doesn't work like that, right? So it is absolutely a roller coaster. And I think knowing how to help yourself. So again, getting to know yourself and realizing, one of the other things that we get from our military background is um, planning and preparation. So, like, knowing that I've got a stressful week coming, I look ahead and I say, "Okay, how can I help myself through this?" And I can, so I talk about, making your soul sing. I also call them recharge activities, and they can be uh, bigger things like going for a hike or a workout, but it could also just be, I've got 5 minutes on my lunch hour. I work from home. I'm going to crank up my favorite 80s hairband and I'm just going to dance and sing to my heart content, right? Like, because again, it just feels good. It's something that I know lifts my spirits. I know I'm doing it for myself. And then I can just take a deep breath and head into kind of the stressful afternoon kind of thing. So I think that we're constantly on the roller coaster of life, but the more that we are prepared for it and we know how to help ourselves, I think that's the biggest thing with happiness is I know how to touch it, Scott. I still get down. And in fact, when I was at the beginning of this journey, I got really upset with myself for making a mistake. And my husband said, can you bring her back? Can you bring back my happy wife? Like, can you do some of those activities that help you get back there? Because you gotta let this go, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So and it still happens. I just find I'm able to get back. I'm able to take care of myself and use my coping mechanisms faster to again, just be like, "Oh yeah, this is me. I'm imperfect, but I love my life." And so I think that's part of it is just the feeling empowered to say, "I've got this. I can help myself." Or if I can't help myself in this moment, I know how to ask for help. And I think that really is that confidence to go, I can do this. I can do hard things.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, what about when you have someone kinda like yourself who just doesn't have a dream, doesn't have, like, a goal or a sense of purpose maybe, is a better way to, put it, and they're kinda just feeling lost, like, they don't know where to even start to find happiness. Like none of these things really seem all that interesting to them.
Right.
Maybe they're kind of depressed and down, and um, just there's no spark in them at that point. Where what are some of the things that they can do to kind of help find that in them?
Yeah. So, as you're saying that, I'm seeing me sitting in that conference with a big gaping hole, just, feeling like I'm the only one who feels like this. And one of the things I love to tell people is we learn in doing like activity. And so just do something and
Hmm.
then ask yourself, did this work? And if it didn't work, it's not a failure. It's information, right?
Yeah,
It's data. And so then we kind of get up the next day and we try something else that is, did that work? Did that help me feel better? Did I get more joy in that day or did what I tried work for me? And I really think, Scott, it comes back to just investing in yourself and saying, "I'm gonna try things, and they're not all gonna work, but I'm gonna try them." And it's all information, and it's really getting towards getting to know yourself, what works for you and what doesn't. Because I think one of the things that we get sucked into in today's society is constantly feeling like we're always being told what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to act, and most importantly, how we're supposed to feel. We can get happy when we buy this car, when we lose 20 pounds, when we meet the perfect mate, when we get a bigger house, right? And then we get there or not, but often we get there and we're like, "Okay, where's my happy?" Like it doesn't it's not free flowing. And in realizing when I learn what brings me joy and I take care of myself and figure out how to ask for what I need, like to reach out to those connections that really lift my spirits or getting out for a walk, those things. The more information you have on what makes you tick, what brings you joy, just those little steps, we don't have to do it all at once, but try something new because, if we just stay with the status quo, we're not gonna figure out what lights us up. We're not gonna find that spark. Like, we have to go out and no one's gonna give it to us. We have to go out and find it, figure out, at least one. And then after you get one, you get momentum and you're like, "Okay, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna try this," kind of thing, right? So it builds confidence.
yeah, and and that goes back to the kind of that definition of insanity is that you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Like, it just doesn't work, right? And so, yeah, try something different. And I think it was Thomas Edison who said, I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that don't work.
Right,
And I might have misquoted that to some extent, but the general gist is there, where, you know, none of these things are failures. You try something, and like you said in the beginning, like if that doesn't work for you and it's not bringing any happiness or joy to your life, okay, well, good. Now you know that's just a thing you don't do anymore,
right.
or maybe limit the amount that you do it. You know, like you don't need to go and seek that activity out because it serves no purpose for you. Um, so you do those things and you try them out, until you find that thing. And yeah, you might go through, you know, a dozen or more different activities that you try, or you know, situations, events, places that you might go to, whatever it is, that you're doing. Um, you might you might try a bunch, but all you're doing is just getting that data and learning this works, this doesn't. This works, that does. And that's it. And that's it's really, you know, it, I don't want to say it's simple because sometimes it's hard for people who just don't know where to start. It's like it's overwhelming.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, um, but you kind of just have to throw a dart at a dartboard and pick one and just go for it, right?
Yeah, well, I think and like you said, it's simple, but not necessarily easy, right?
Yeah.
Like, me, because I know learning new things is good for me, but I still do not love that feeling of feeling stupid or, like, being
Yeah.
the worst person on the court or whatever, right? Like, I don't love that, but I've learned that once I push through that and and get over myself essentially, right? Like, get over those insecurities, learn to laugh at myself. I can either have a great time or I might just meet some really cool people as I'm bumbling my way through something that
Sure.
isn't meant for me, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and that's a good attitude to have about it too, is um, just knowing that not every activity or situation is going to be right for you, and being able to laugh at yourself when, you know, if you're learning to, you know, play basketball or something and you totally miss the shot, like, okay, well, you can laugh at that. It's okay. Like, you're not a professional basketball player and you know that. So give yourself that grace, right?
and you're
Um,
not gonna be the first person who does it, and you're definitely not gonna be the last, right?
that's
So,
true.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Somebody else is gonna come around and pick up probably that same ball and
same thing,
miss
yeah.
the shot too, and you know, look ridiculous as they're doing it. And there's so I picked basketball honestly because I suck at basketball. Like, I am probably the worst player at basketball. And when I was in college, with my roommates and I were playing basketball, and I was fumbling around, just not being good at it. And these guys who were on the football team in our college, they wanted to play too. There was only one court open, and they said, "Hey, can we, you know, play together?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's fine." And so it was us versus them. And these guys were built like refrigerators, like they were huge, right?
Right.
And um, there was this one time I was like kind of running down the court. Uh, I thought I was open, and my roommate went to go pass the ball to me, and all of a sudden I just stopped as I'm running. I'm looking, you know, kinda over my shoulder as I'm running. I'm not looking where I'm going, and I just stopped because I ran into one of these guys, and to him, it was like maybe like a fly hitting you. It's just kinda like, "Eh, whatever." But to me, I was on the floor, like, "How the heck did this happen?" And I kinda had to just laugh because I knew I sucked at basketball, and I knew I didn't know what I was doing really. And this guy just kind of like, he reached his hand out to help me up, and he was laughing too because he saw the humor in it. And so, you know, we got to laugh at it. I just know that basketball is not my thing.
Right, right, exactly.
Um, so, uh, yeah, so you talked a little bit about resilience before, like one of those things that you get from the military and in the military background. Um, in your opinion, your words maybe, what do happiness and resilience have in common? Like, how do they kind of fit together?
So, resilience is your ability to come back from a struggle, right? And when I was started studying this and was on my happiness journey, sharing the tools that bring you more happiness and joy, I realized that it's the same things you do to come back from a struggle. You
Hmm.
know, you just you have to be your own best cheerleader. You have to figure out what works for you, and you have to prioritize feeling better, coming back and supporting yourself. So that I it always astounds me every time I realize I got invited once to speak at a conference about resilience, and I was like, I'm the happiness lady. Like, um, are you sure? And I was so relieved because I presented first, and I said, listen, I think these 5 happiness tools are important for finding happiness, but they're also all the ways I come back from struggle. And it went over well, but then I stayed at the conference and I listened. And the next 3 speakers said the exact same thing as me, and they'd been through major, major struggles. And they're like,
Sure,
"Here's how I came back." It was so I thought, "Wow, isn't that amazing?" Because I mean, let's be honest, finding happiness is about taking ourselves out of a bad place and saying, how can I feel better?" And again, it comes back to that it's a journey, right? Like life is a roller coaster, and on
sure.
the dips, how do we get ourselves back up the other side and living the best we can? And it's the same tools. It's figuring out what I need and then getting that for myself.
Yeah, and it's a good point, and you said this earlier too, and I wanted to touch on it, but knowing that happiness is a journey, that there are ups and downs in life and in your happiness, the scale of your happiness. So you're gonna have some peaks where you're really happy, and you're gonna have some lows where you're really sad, and that's okay. Like, so, there's a death in the family, or you lose your job or something. Like, yeah, you're gonna be sad about that. Like, you shouldn't be happy in those situations, right? Like, the that wouldn't be probably normal or natural, but it's how you deal with that and how you bounce back from those situations. Yes, feel the sadness for what it is in that moment, and um, you know, experience it, because I think without the lows, the sadness in life, you maybe can't appreciate the highs and the happiness sometimes, where you don't have that perspective, right? And so there are going to be sad times, and so yeah, experience those. But what do you do to get yourself back up, so you're not staying down in the lows, in the sadness, and maybe making that part of your identity is like, I'm just the, sad, grieving, whatever. Uh, like, that shouldn't be who you are. You should be able to bounce back from that, right?
Yeah, I think and that's it. I think sometimes when I talk about happiness, people think I'm happy all the time and I'm not, right? Like that's
Right.
not how it works, but it's the ability to be happy and find joy in day-to-day stuff and just appreciate what I have.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's it. I think I feel empowered knowing that n- whatever comes up, I've got tools to just appreciate where I'm at, be grateful for what I've been given, and find joy in every day. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I think, um maybe an important message for folks who are struggling with happiness and maybe thinking like, how do I find this all the time? It's like, you're not going to.
mhm.
There's going to be situations where you're just not going to be happy, and that's fine. It's actually probably normal and healthy to not be happy
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. And like you said, even you are not happy all of the time, and that's okay. You can be okay with that. Um, Now, do you think that we have like a predetermined happiness limit? Like, how happy can somebody actually get, or is the sky the limit? As far as happiness goes.
Yes and no. So, I think that we all have a comfort level, of how how happy we can get, but I
Okay.
think that we can push through that happiness lid. So, for example, if you're raised in a family where only doom and gloom is talked about and, the world owes me, or, we just don't we're not taught that we can be happier, that we're allowed to laugh at ourselves and find joy. It's pretty, that person would have a different happiness level than someone who's taught to see the opportunities in life.
Okay.
But I do believe that, so I don't think it's like a hard lid that we can't break through, but I do think that we all sort of have a certain level. And as we get to know ourselves and increase that lid, well, we find more joy, we can increase that lid and experience it more often, um, and easier, because I think it's like a muscle. I think the more we learn
Mm.
to find it for ourselves, the easier it becomes.
That does make sense, because you you get a a range of people, from the bodybuilder who is, you know, absolutely massive, ripped, muscles and everything like that, to the person who's never, you know, gotten off the couch other than, to, you know, eat and use the bathroom, basically. Like, you get those 2 extremes of people, and, that far extreme of the couch potato, that they're not going to be able to, do anywhere near the amount of, weightlifting that the bodybuilder is going to be able to do, um, right now.
Right.
But if they get themselves into the gym and they start exercising and they're lifting weights, at some point eventually they may get to that point where they're at that builder level. Um, but they got to do some work in order to get there. And I think
Yeah.
that's maybe kind of the point you're trying to drive at, right?
Yeah, and the thing is they have to do the work.
Yeah,
They have to do the work on themselves, watching the other person do it is not gonna, it's not gonna get them stronger. They actually have to do the work. So, I love that
right.
comparison, by the way. I've never made that, like, I always talk about, like, increase your happiness muscle, but that's brilliant. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense because even the bodybuilder, like the person who is in that peak physical condition, who can lift a truck over their head or something, something crazy. Um, if they stopped exercising and stopped lifting weights, eventually their muscles start to kind of wear down and they're not as strong as they once were. Over time they're going to start to get weaker and weaker and weaker, and
Yeah.
that they lose some of that. And so I think on the other extreme is, if you are generally a happy person, you know how to bounce back from those bad situations and be happy, but you find yourself dwelling in sadness and things like that, you're going to start to lose that muscle, and get yourself pulled back down into that other extreme, which obviously is not where you want to be. But yeah, I guess think of it like bodybuilding. Like,
Mhm.
you're gonna do the work, you're gonna see the results. If you don't do the work, gonna see you're also gonna see the results. It's just not
Right,
gonna be the
right,
results you want, right?
right.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah.
so along your happiness journey, have you found any unexpected bonuses, like things that you didn't expect were gonna happen to you, but here we are, and it happened, and now there's this nice happy little bonus that came along with it.
Yeah, there's 2 actually, Scott. The first one is, so when I was starting my podcast originally, it really was, it was almost therapy for me, because I was just sharing with people what I'd learned, and they say if you can teach it, you really learn it.
Yeah,
And so I was doing that, and what happened was I did some research and somebody said, "Well, add a Facebook group to it so you're not just some crazy lady talking to herself in the closet kinda thing." And so I started a Facebook group, and so that, because, like, when you're in your podcast booth, there's not a huge crowd around you, right?
right.
Um, and so what happened is I started this Facebook group, and it created a community, and I found other people who were looking for similar things to me, and so I wasn't alone, and that's so powerful, knowing that there's other people out there, who feel like, who understand when I talk about that big gaping hole,
Mhm.
and they're able to discuss these things with me and share and celebrate when we figure stuff out or just when we realize that, yeah, I can do this. So that's the first one, community. I found people outside of my normal circle who are, were going through similar things to me and wanted to go on their own journey. So that was neat. The other one is it changed the conversations that I was having with the people who were inside, in my inner circle already. So I started my podcast during COVID, right? Like I'd planned to launch the middle of March 2020, and then the world shut down, and I thought, well, I can't do this. Thank goodness for friends. I just had a friend's like, no, now is exactly when you need to do this.
Yeah.
But what it did is, I mean, so through 2020, the discussion at our family dinner table was about what I was learning and what I was trying. And so my husband and our son and I, that was our discussion. And then, when we visited with people, they're like, because we did a lot of Zoom, game nights or catch ups with friends. And they'd be like, so the podcast. And it just, instead of saying, "Ah, COVID is so long and oh, woe is me," it just changed the conversations that we were having, and it became proactive as opposed to, "This sucks, life is awful, how
Yeah.
long do you think we're gonna be here?" I mean, we still had that, but it was much shorter because then we switched to, I listened to this podcast and we're trying this, we're trying something new, and it was just empowering. That is not something I would have foreseen at all. I didn't know when I started this journey what was gonna happen other than maybe I'd find 1 or 2 people, but the changing the conversations in the community were just huge gifts that I did not count on.
Yeah, and community, I think, is a big part of it because, you and it doesn't have to be a happiness community, like, you have found that because that just happens to be your focus, and
Right.
that's what uh, that's where your interests are, and so that's the direction you took, but, you mentioned a whole slew of activities earlier, gardening and painting and, whatever the other things are that people do that they find happiness in. There if you are into gardening, guess what? There's somebody else out there who also likes to garden, and,
Mhm.
you can I don't know, you get together and, either garden together or just talk about gardening together, meet up for coffee or something like that, and, hopefully you both like coffee, but but, find those types of people, find that community, and you can now, in addition to doing that activity, you can talk about that activity and or share experiences with those people in that community. If you like to go bike riding, you can go bike riding together instead of alone, and things like that, right? So um, that is a nice, like, happy little bonus that you get from focusing on these types of activities and the things that bring you happiness and joy is you get to now find other people with similar interests and similar likes and things that bring them happiness and maybe they can help improve the way you do the thing that brings you happiness, right? And you can feed off of each other, right?
Well, and I think that's it because I think when we connect with people, that's powerful, and I think finding positive connections is a happiness tool that I talk about all the time as well. And so, say for example, you realize that gardening is a recharge activity for you, like you really enjoy it. And then you meet someone else who does it. Well, it's almost like an accountability buddy because then they're going to be like, "Hey, like, do you want to do this together?" So now you're getting
Yeah.
somebody who is pulling you maybe outside of or out of your funk to go do something that really fills you up that maybe you wouldn't have done on your own. Like, it's just nice having a partner or even just talking about it, right? Like,
Hmm.
it can pull you out of your funk when you find that connection with other people who with shared interests, for sure.
Yeah, and so you've also talked about a happiness support team that I've kind of looked into your kind of background and everything. You talk about that. Is this kind of along the lines of what you're talking about? Or is this something different?
No, that's exactly it. I think it's really important to realize, it's we're in this shared human experience. And so when we find people that we can talk to about what we're going through, it it deepens the experience. So I had a couple years ago, I started as I was learning all this stuff, somebody's like, "Can you package it up?" And so I created a happiness challenge. And what happened is this group during COVID, this group of ladies, one of them said, "I'm doing this. Who wants to do it with me?" And like 8 or 10 of them did it together. And they just created a friend group, like a group on Facebook Messenger, and they just started, so one of the things I challenge people is gratitude. And the more you find to be grateful for, the more beauty you'll see in your life. And so I challenge people for 30 days to find 3 new things to be grateful for. And what that does is it takes you outside your comfort zone of just like, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my family. Like, not that you're not grateful for those, but then to start
Sure.
realize all these other minute things in your life. And so what this group, taught me is, they kept reporting in, and they would see somebody else's gratitude post for the day, like, just in their small group, and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah. What's mine? I haven't shared it yet." And just by sharing with each other, they got to enjoy the other person's gratitude, but then they also got reminded, to do their 3 gratitudes for the day. So, it's when you find that group, and you're inspired, I think that's what we forget is sometimes not every day these things are easy, so
Mhm.
being inspired or nudged by someone else just helps us stay on track and stay focused on what we can control instead of seeing only the bad or the struggles in life, we get to see the good as well.
Yeah, and seeing other people's the things that other people are grateful for, um, is kind of a nice, uh, refresher too, to be like, "Wow, that's good for them. I'm happy for them. I'm glad that they are, able to experience whatever that thing is that they were grateful for." And, um, uh, that just in and of itself is gotta lift your spirits a little bit, even if you're having a bad day, it's like, "Oh, you know what? Good for them. I'm happy that they got to experience this," and it's helpful if it's a friend or a relative or someone who you care about because you want them to be happy. You want them to experience good things too. I'm not saying that it necessarily has to be, that, um, but I know, like, if my wife came to me, it's like, "I'm so happy that," or "I'm so grateful that," fill in the blank, whatever it is, um, well, I'm gonna be happy for her. Like that just I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, well, good for you. You had a good day and I'm having a bad day." And, I'm not gonna drag her down into the mud because I'm having a bad day. I'm gonna be happy,
Right.
I'm gonna be like, "Oh, well, this is good." So yeah, that's having that support team and, have I think accountability too is a big piece of it, right?
Yeah, sticking with something that we know is good for us isn't always easy. So it's just like having a friend to meet at the gym, right? Like it's just
Sure.
reminding you to do the things that are good for you. The other thing I was going to say is the being happy for someone else, but also when we hear what other people are grateful for, it also reminds us not to take the little things for granted because
Mm,
when someone says, uh, I had a stress-free morning, or my teenager gave me a hug this morning. It reminds you to appreciate the little things and focus on
sure.
the little things, because often when we get stuck in the busyness of life, we don't slow down and appreciate all of our blessings. We just think it's always gonna be like this, and we all know it's not, but there's something in our brain that just pretends that, this is the way it is and it's always gonna be like that, and it's not. Like, take
Yeah.
time and smell the roses, but, like, enjoy the little things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And, one of the things I was actually talking to a family friend, just yesterday, and, his wife is going through some medical issues and not not a great situation that she's in. Um, and despite the fact that's a bad situation, you don't wanna obviously don't want illnesses and things like that to come into play in your life, but when you look at that situation, it kinda makes you grateful for the health that you do have.
Mhm.
And, so even in a bad situation, you can still pick something out of that and say, well, I'm grateful that, you know, fill in the blank of whatever that situation is, what, the opposite of whatever that person is going through, I guess, maybe is, I'm grateful that I have my health and that my family is healthy. And, obviously praying for the best in that situation, but, it makes you appreciate the health that you do have.
Right.
And that's, um, you know, it may seem like it's a small thing, but it is, it's something that you can be grateful for.
So true.
So, yeah. Um, well, so it's been really a pleasure speaking with you today and learning about what you do and how you're helping people and everything. I know there's going to be some people who are going to be interested in your podcast. I briefly mentioned it in the beginning, in the intro, but could you remind the listeners about your podcast, what they can expect from it when they tune in?
Yeah, so the podcast is called The Happier You, and it comes out biweekly, and it's just, it's a little. I hope it's a little bit of sunshine to inspire you to, find more joy in your life, and usually I give a challenge at the end of every podcast to say, like, "This is what was talked about today. Is there a way you can add more of this in your life or try this?" So, it's a mix of solo casts where it's just me sharing something that I'm learning and thinking about, but also interviewing people who help people. They have ideas, they have theories, they're in a service industry that just to remind us that we can choose, we can ask for help, we can choose joy. So yeah, it's a mix of both, but generally it's just trying to inspire you to figure out how to live your best life by trying new things.
And we were talking earlier about uh, trying those new things and figuring out what is that thing, that what's that first step or what's that next step. If I tried that first thing and it didn't work for me, what's that next step? I've For everybody out there who's like overwhelmed by all the steps that they could be taking, they don't know what to do. I'm just going to give you right now, go check out the podcast. Go listen to that because you're, based on what you're saying here, you're given basically little challenges, mini challenges, and it's just saying, hey, go try this. And it's fine. If it doesn't work, it's fine. If it does, wonderful. Keep doing that, but at least now you're hearing these things and you're getting some inspiration of things to try. And even if it's not the thing that you specifically talk about, maybe it sparks an idea in somebody's head for something else that maybe is similar but not exactly what you're talking about. Um, like great, go try that thing and see
Absolutely.
if that works, right? And
Yep.
there's no judgment there or anything. It's just do the thing that you think is going to work and just keep trying and don't give up. So before we wrap up this episode, speaking of trying new things and happiness and everything, I think humor is probably one of the best medicines when it comes to sadness and things like that. I like to um, you know end each episode with a little bit of humor to hopefully put a smile on somebody's face out there. That may be the only smile they have today, and even if the joke falls flat that I tell, you can at least laugh at me, and that's fine, and I don't care. That's I can laugh at me, and that's fine, and so can you. So I'm gonna give you a quick joke here, and hopefully it makes folks laugh. Hopefully, the delivery is good. Um, so there's a man and a woman. They've been married for more than 60 years. They shared everything. They talked about everything. They kept no secrets from each other, except that the old woman, she had a shoebox on top of her closet, and she told her husband, never open it or never ask her about it, about what's inside the shoebox. And for all these years, he never really thought about the box. He just put it out of his mind. But one day, the old woman got very sick, and the doctor said she wasn't going to recover. And while the husband was trying to sort out all of their affairs, he asked the wife about the shoebox and brought it down to her bedside. And she agreed that it was time that she should share what was inside of the box. And when he opened it, he found two crocheted dolls and a stack of money totaling $95,000. And he asked her about what's going on with all of this money and the dolls. And she said, when we were about to get married, my grandmother told me the secret of a happy marriage is to never argue. She told me that if I ever got angry with you, I should just keep quiet and crochet a doll. And the husband was so moved, he had to fight back the tears because there's only 2 little dolls in this box, and that meant to him that she had only been angry with him 2 times in all of those years. And he burst with happiness, and he said, "Well, that explains the doll, but what about all of this money? Where did it come from?" And she goes, "Oh, that's the money I made from selling all the dolls."
That's awesome, Scott, I love that.
So,
So good.
anyways, hopefully that made some other folks laugh. I thought it was pretty clever. Anyways, um, thank you for taking the time to join us on the show. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate what you are doing now to help other people find that spark, find their happiness, and get back on the right track. I really do think it's great work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks for having me on. It's been, really fun, geeking out over happiness talk.
You bet. Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Son, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.